Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our weekend virtual cafe for the month of October. We were just saying before we hit record that it's been a few months, I think, since we've done a virtual cafe. So it's so wonderful to have you here. And as you can see from the room, we don't have a PowerPoint today because the idea is that, of course, we're going to all be a part of this discussion, whoever wants to be a part of it. It's more of a discussion-based forum rather than me or someone else presenting and teaching. I think this is a topic that a lot of us are interested in, and one that is certainly applicable to all of us as business owners. All right, I just heard a little bit of a. Oh, is somebody are not on mute? Maybe just mute yourself. I might be hearing an echo from someone. There, sounds better now. So for those of you I have not yet met, my name is Carrie Ramsey, and I am the project manager for the WeCan project, which is led by Queen's University and funded through Queen's Partnerships and Innovation. Some of you have been part of many of these workshops and virtual cafes in the past. In that case, welcome back. If it's your very first time, though, I want to make sure that you feel at home, you feel comfortable, you're among friends here, even if you don't know them yet. So I certainly do encourage you in just a moment to introduce yourselves in the Zoom chat. Actually, why don't you go ahead? Let's do that now. We only have a 1 hour today rather than our regular 90 minutes. So we're gonna pick up the pace. We're gonna make sure that we get all we can out of this session today. Why don't you go ahead, introduce yourselves in the Zoom chat. If you want to, if you spot someone you know, by all means, give them a shout out. But if you want to let us know what your business is, where you're connecting from, let us know in the Zoom chat. If you have a website, feel free to put it in there. Even if you've done it dozens of times before, there are new women on the call today who have not met you. I promise you that. While you're doing that, I'll take a moment to acknowledge that I'm connecting to this workshop from Queen's University, which is situated on the ancestral territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee people. And it is certainly an honor and privilege for my family to live, work, and play here on these lands. And if you're not sure which of the territories that you are located on, I encourage you to visit Native, let me just put the link right there, native.land.ca, and you can check out where your territory is located. All right, so great to have everyone on the call. As I mentioned, today's virtual cafe is structured as a discussion as opposed to a presentation. So what we're going to do is I'm going to facilitate and lead the discussion, and I'm going to do it using mostly questions that we'll throw out to the group. Some of you may wish to answer in the Zoom chat, and I'll make sure, by the way, everyone gets a copy of the Zoom chat if they would like, or you can download it yourself. But we're going to start with a poll. All right, so I'm going to post this poll here. Give me a thumbs up, a few of you, if you see the poll. Anyone see the poll? Yeah, okay, great. So go ahead. Questions are, where are you at on your speaking journey? So today, of course, is all about becoming a paid speaker. Curious to know if you're at level 1, which is you're interested in becoming a paid speaker, but just getting started. Or B, you have booked at least one paid speaking engagement. Or C, you are regularly booking paid speaking engagement. This sort of really helps us to figure out where the group is at, and frankly may, steer some of the questions as well. All right, so at this point, I'll just give one more second or two here for folks to complete that poll. Don't feel like you failed if you couldn't find the poll on the Zoom call. Don't worry about it at all. Here's the results. Again, Carol Ann, maybe I see you. Could you give me a thumbs up if you could see those results? Okay. So we see most of you are in that early stage of speaking. So don't feel like you're the only one if you're in that early stage. We have some folks who have booked at least one paid speaking engagement and a couple who are regularly booking paid speaking engagements. Great. So that gives us a bit of an idea where people are at. So that's fantastic. All right. So what I want to do is throw out a few questions today to get our discussion started. And the first is really around what types of paid speaking engagements do you see? Let's kind of define what this means. There are all sorts of different types. So what I'll invite you to do is perhaps to use your reaction button if you want to go off mute. I should be able to see that. It will give me a sign, and you'll move to the top of my screen. It's easier than when you raise your hand physically. So if anybody wants to weigh in, what's a type of paid speaking engagement that we might be talking about when we're talking about this? even if it's the most basic one, use your reaction button and let's just get people visualizing the many different ways that women can get paid to speak, and men, of course. Go ahead, Carol Ann.
By running workshops.
Great, love that. We're running workshops that you get paid for that aren't always free. Love it. Shira, over to you.
Accidentally did too many symbols. Well, I can tell you I've been paid for keynotes, panels, and sometimes even for media interviews, like being interviewed on a podcast and stuff like that.
Love that. Excellent examples. Aileen, even if we're repeating, like if she's like, oh, she took my answer, go ahead and say it again if it's something that you've noticed. Aileen.
Yeah, I agree. Keynote speaking as well as motivational talks.
Excellent. So we've heard some examples of that motivational inspiration, but also teaching in the form of workshops. And we'll define what some of these means if someone doesn't know what a keynote is, for instance. Jade, go ahead.
I do mainly continuing education.
Yes, excellent. Paid speaking opportunity for sure. Over to you, Susan.
Hi, I said in the chat, I do speaking engagements for Homewood Health. So they pay me $175 for an hour and I present something on, I did one yesterday with 66 people on mental health stigma in the workplace.
I love that. So you gave us a bunch of information. You talked about who hires, because that's going to be one of our questions soon. Who hires paid speakers? What are some fees? And we'll discuss fees because I know that that's something that women struggle with. So thanks for sharing that, Susan. Brenda, over to you. Examples of types of paid speaking engagements.
I am a survivor speaker for the PARTY program, which stands for Preventing Alcohol-Related Trauma in Youth. And I'm also an educator. So I do the Driving Without Impairment courses for a weekend.
Wow. Super interesting. I love the topic, so diverse. I love that. Martha, over to you.
I do a couple things. I facilitate trainings for management teams, and I also present, or I've written speeches for women and women of color events that the city has held and in other places. And then I facilitate trainings for Mad Dog Athletics. So I travel all over to do those trainings.
So you mentioned that you speak, but you also write speeches for other women. And do you get paid for those speeches also?
Yes.
Great. So let's keep that in mind as well. I think that's another great revenue stream to consider. Shira, back to you.
Thought of a few more for you. I've also been paid to moderate panels and to MC events. That's a lot of fun. And this one's sort of not 100% obvious, but for the entrepreneurs on the call, I've seen people do business pitch competitions and walk away with over $25,000 for their business, or even $100,000.
Yeah, and sometimes those pitches, although it takes hours and hours and days to prepare them, they might be a 10-minute speech. So, I mean, yeah, some of those are very lucrative. And Stacy, why don't we round it out with you? Types of speaking engagements.
I was just going to add retreats. So either speaking at the retreat or facilitating a retreat. I've done some in terms of giving actual workshops, and I've also facilitated strategic planning workshops.
I love that idea. Thanks for that. And, you know, for those I've worked with before, we've talked about that being at the premium level where people get you for a whole weekend, not just maybe for an hour or an hour and a half, etc. So excellent. Great. Did so many more than I've written down. I had some similar ones: keynote speaker, panelist, MC, facilitators, moderators, workshop leaders. I don't think I heard breakout session leader, but that's becoming more and more popular at conferences. Fireside chat participant, where you're interviewing somebody else, and that in fact is or vice versa, where you're being interviewed. What was the other? Yeah, I think there was some other ones that were mentioned as well in the group, which give us, I think now we're like, oh, it's not just me on a stage. It could be me in a variety of scenarios. Okay. So thank you to everyone if you're just joining us and you haven't yet introduced yourself in the Zoom chat, feel free to use that forum to introduce yourself. It's a great opportunity to network with the brilliant minds in the room. So we've just covered a question, which was, what are types of paid speaking engagements? So now I invite you, if you feel comfortable, I want you to do a visualization exercise with me. And if you feel comfortable to close your eyes, and some of you won't because you're watching the ASL interpreter, I understand that. But if you feel comfortable to close your eyes, I want you to visualize that you're standing in front of your ideal audience. This is, you are in your happy place and speaking to a group of individuals about a certain topic. You're in a certain place. So I want you to, first of all, imagine, who is that audience? Who are you speaking to? Like, who would that ideally be? If you had a choice to speak to and share your thoughts, your expertise, your journey, who would that group be? The second question I have is, where are you? Are you in a large auditorium? Are you in a classroom? Are you online? So where are you physically? And then another question would be, how many people are in that room? Is it a full auditorium, like I was saying, or is it a small group? Is it a group? Is it a Zoom room like we're on now and there's maybe 3 or 4? So how many people are in that group? And then the final question here, and I see some of you taking notes, and that's perfectly fine. I love that. You don't have to if you're still visualizing. The question is, what are you talking about? What are you telling them about? All right, so you can come on back to me if you were closing your eyes. So the questions that we kind of were imagining, and I know that wasn't adequate as a true visualization activity where I gave you a lot of time to do it, but I would love to hear from someone. We can't hear from everyone because of the number on the call, but who would like to describe for us a few of those elements? My ideal audience, if I was talking to, it would be these people. It would be in this scenario, and I'd be talking about this. Does anybody want to sort of be bold and just maybe tell us what would some of the attributes be of your audience and your topic? I'm just going to do 1 or 2 of these. Susan, go ahead, and then Carol Ann, and then Helen. We'll do 3.
I went all out. I pictured like close to 1,000 women, 50 and over. And I was talking to them about what does it mean to age consciously in this culture of youth obsessed phobia.
Oh.
And how we do that mindfully, and together we raise our awareness so we don't get stuck in having to keep getting, being young over and over.
I love that. You're going to go back to the recording later and write all of that down, because that's a great keynote right there, Susan. People in this group would sign up to hear it for sure. Thanks for sharing that. Carol Ann, just to remind you, who are you speaking to? Where are you? And what is it that you're talking about?
Immediately went to, I'm speaking at a National Aboriginal Trust Officers Conference, which I attended one last year or early this year. And I'm speaking to trust officers that are managing money for their communities all across Canada. And it's a conference room setting. And I'm talking to them about investments, and I'm providing education, information, guidance, and I'm speaking as like who I am. I'm not coming as, I've noticed there are a lot of women trust officers, predominantly women. And I think when it came to that section of the conference, like, I don't want to sound partisan or whatever, but it flipped to being all white men speaking when it came to, let's talk about the investments now. And I thought I wanted to be that person they could resonate with more.
I love that. And I love, you had said a couple of things. First of all, we don't have to fit the mold. That every single person on this call has a story, has a message, and a way of delivering it that the world needs to hear. So in case you needed to hear that, your stories worth telling, and your business journey, all the things that you're teaching are valuable. Thank you, Carol Ann. We need more women's voices. We need more Indigenous women's voices at these tables. Thank you for sharing that with us. Pardon me. Helen, over to you.
Thank you. And mine is a little bit similar to Susan's. So I'm speaking to a larger audience. It's a keynote. It's mostly women, but not all women. And I'm talking to them about the longevity dividend, the fact that everybody today has got 30 extra years to live. And how are we going to use those 30 years meaningfully? And I more or less will talk about ageism and how internalized ageism impacts us on an individual level, but it also affects us socially and economically. And so I think I answered your questions.
Yeah.
Did
I love it. And I see the formation here of a whole conference for women over 50 who need to hear these messages. I love that. And you've got 2 speakers lined up right there. I love it. All right. So I know I only asked for 3 only because I want to give folks, first of all, an example of 3, how we can use visualization, first of all, to set moonshot goals for ourselves. Carol Ann, also back to that example, gave us the idea of I just went to this event. I didn't see someone like me. That would be a goal I have. And then once she's attains it, she'll set a new goal. But, if we have like that ideal audience, and sometimes, here's what I'm just going to say on that. Sometimes you don't have to wait for someone else to hold the event, right? And you don't where is the event that I can speak at? Maybe you need to create your own event, right? Maybe you need to start collaborating with someone in the room. If these conferences, if these retreats, these dates are not being held, there's an opportunity for you to actually host it. So that's, I know, another level, but think about that as well. But set your moonshot goal. Is there a place that you would love to speak? And put that up somewhere as a goal for yourself to work towards. All right, so thank you for those who have been sort of sharing those ideas of, first of all, what types of paid engagements are out there, as well as that visualization of who's our audience, what do we want to talk about? And by all means, if anybody wants to put in the Zoom chat their answers to that question, we'd love to hear that as well. Okay, so let's move into another question. This one is, what are the benefits of being a paid speaker? Not just a speaker, because I think many of you have done some speaking, perhaps in some capacity, but I do want to emphasize the paid. As women, we do a lot of things for free, and there's nothing wrong with that. If it's a part of our sales funnel and it's lead generating, I get that. Today, we're talking about paid speaking engagements. What are some of the benefits aside from we get paid? Okay, that's an obvious one. But who would like to come off mute and maybe discuss, perhaps you have done paid speaking and there was a benefit to it, or maybe you're speaking in the hypothetical. I don't mind. So again, let's use our reaction buttons. And if, by the way, let me just say, if you don't know where your reaction button is, it's on the bottom of your screen. There's a little happy face with a plus sign and it says reactions under it, just in case you want to participate and we don't want you to be excluded. And Mindy, I will maybe let you ask Leah and Jessica if they would like to participate. And I'm missing their Zoom comments. Have them describe that to you so you can interrupt me. All right, Mindy, does that work? Okay, thank you. All right, so Shira, over to you.
Yeah, for me, being a paid public speaker helps to bring a lot of credibility for me as an entrepreneur, because usually if I'm being paid as a speaker, I'm being recognized as a subject matter expert, and I've landed a really good panel at a conference or a keynote, or even a podcast. When people start paying me to be interviewed for interviews like that, that's a recognition.
All right, I love that. So we've mentioned credibility. Heather, over to you.
I would say a boost in self-confidence.
Yes, I love that. Do you want to talk more about that?
Just leading on what Shira said, the more you speak about it, the more you feel comfortable in giving the talk that you're about to give. So it comes out more natural rather than stumbling over your words. So you get more confident in what you're saying.
Absolutely. And my next question, we're going to talk about the barriers to paid public speaking. I think one of them is this lack of confidence. And sometimes we gain the confidence by doing. Honestly, that's what I've experienced anyways. People don't always know this about me, but I'm an introvert. And so there you go. Sometimes you just gain confidence the more you do it. Brenda, over to you, and then Jade, and then Pamela.
I may be answering this wrong, but I wrote down the benefits are to change people's minds, or to, I know one of my DWI program, the first thing I say is, I want you to know what I know. That's why I'm here. Or even to bring a light to a matter that people don't normally notice. So I don't know if I
think that's beautiful. Absolutely. And back to the idea of women's voices, right? we sometimes don't hear these things from an intersectional of women of color or newcomer women to Canada, or, groups that are represented here on the call today. So these things that can really, like you're saying, change people's lives. That's definitely a benefit. Yeah. Jade, over to you.
I would say the biggest piece of being paid for my time to speak has been valuing my own time more. And then also giving me the power to say no to those things that don't give me value, that I might view them as valuable then, but when you do start getting some financial gain from that, you realize like, oh, that was nice for a time and where I was at. However, I'm in a different place now. And I think it really does give my time a lot more value and feeds into that building confidence piece as well.
I love that. That's a great reframe. Perfect. I love that so much. Well said, Jade. Over to you, Pamela. Anine, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, for me, I put in the chat that I wrote 3 children's books, and the first one I wrote was about my Mohawk ancestor, Chief Deseronton, who was the founder of Tyendinaga. So I personally found it kind of sad and unfortunate that a lot of people weren't even aware of him. And doing my research, I found there were no children's books written about him. So after I put the books together and got them out there, I was actually approached by a couple of different schools and libraries. Hey, would you come in to do a book reading and maybe a workshop? So I put that together. Now I thought, well, that was kind of a future wish that I had, to provide some education and awareness, as well as getting paid for doing a book reading and a workshop. That was kind of like the byproduct, but really my goal was to create awareness and to provide an opportunity to educate students and other people about who Captain John was. So it was really a great opportunity for me to be able to do both.
I think that's brilliant. And you just hit on another example of paid speaking, which is if you have a book, just doing a reading from it. And speaking and books do go beautifully together. So perhaps that's a future discussion, virtual cafe, on getting your first book published. Shulamit, over to you.
Carrie, so I'm not going to answer the question. I have a question. And so I'll drop the question, and it can be answered or not right now. Like maybe you're coming to this. It's a bit of like you're talking about getting paid and how do we get paid? And something about your prompt brought this up for me. When I'm pitching myself now, I was great at pitching myself for free stuff. But I feel funny about pitching myself now. When somebody invites me, I'm absolutely cool with talking about my fees. But to pitch and be like, hey, pay me $1,800 or hey, pay me $2,500, I feel funny about sending a pitch and saying, like, obviously in the conversation, it comes up. When you pitch first, then you invite folks into a conversation. And that's the point at which you mention your fees. But I know it's okay to do it, and I still am feeling funny, like it's an edge for me, because as you say, I'm less practiced. And so what I'm hoping for is tips and tricks around the mindset stuff. Yes. And also maybe how to finesse the conversation a little bit so that it doesn't come across really like, yeah, so give me money.
Yeah. Brilliant minds, your brilliant minds, just like many women in the room. That's actually where we're going next. So I'm going to make sure, Shula, that we cover it next. I'll let Cheyenne wrap up her comment, and then we're going to head right into that. Mindset is everything.
I'm excited for that part too. To answer the question, for me, it's buy-in from the audience, right? If someone has paid for this, it opens up that receptiveness for them so that your impact and the value you're providing can have a greater impact on it.
100%. I love that so much. And just before we get to this next phase, I want to answer a question from Islamiat in the Zoom chat. I believe it. Yes, you had to ask the question. Do you need formal qualifications to be a speaker in Canada? Absolutely not. And frankly, but let's just look at the men who are out there speaking. Like sometimes we think like there are people who will speak on anything just because they're asked, and sometimes when they're not. So no, we need to now get in this mindset of every single woman on this call has a message. And so now back to Shula's question, really, or point is, what's standing in our way? So what is standing in our way? And Shula mentioned mindset, what we want to address. I want to throw that out for a couple more people to comment also about what's in our way. Like I say, a mindset probably is one of the biggest ones. And then we'll get into some tips and techniques on how to approach some of these organizations. So if someone would like, go ahead, Shira, things standing in our way of becoming paid speakers. Again, these are general. These might be our experience, but like in specifically, we're speaking as women identifying entrepreneurs today. Go ahead, Shira.
Yeah. So just for context for everybody on the call, I am a seasoned public speaker. I've done over probably 100 speaking gigs in the last sort of 3 to 5 years. So some of the things that have stopped me from being a paid speaker. So here's a few things. So there are some conferences and gigs that legit don't have a budget for paying speakers. And so usually in those situations, I'll say yes for a couple of reasons. One, there's a good social impact. I feel really good about what I'm speaking about, and it's going to be a positive impact for the audience. Or it leads to sales in my sales funnel. So if I know that consulting contracts or potential contracting opportunities can come out of it, I'll do it for free as long as I pay for the travel. I find that this creates a bit of an awkwardness for me in terms of my value, because I've also been very well paid as a speaker. I've generally, sometimes I'll ask people, is this volunteer or is this paid? And the other thing that I find awkward is sometimes conferences have varying budgets. So you might have a conference and their budget is a $200 honorarium. And then sometimes I'll get an invite to another conference and they'll give me several roles and I might get $3,000 for a day or two. Like it varies so much. I find it creates an awkwardness for me. So I don't know if we could maybe talk about that.
Yes,
but
let's hit on that point. So that's a key point you made there. And it's a tip that I think, speaking back to Shula's point also, so this is going to wrap together. When someone approaches you to speak, many times they assume we're doing it for free. The way that we would respond to that particular email, and this isn't where we're cold pitching, but someone approaches, hey, Cheyenne, will you speak at this? Great, sure. What's your budget? That's immediately the question that I ask. And then they go, oh, she wants to be paid. So instead of saying yes, but only if you pay me, the question is, sure, what's your budget? So that's a necessary question we need to ask. And the second point is when they come back, right, and make sure that they may come back and say, well, what's your fee? I like to make them speak first. I like to make, because I also am a paid speaker. So I like to have them say, my budget is $1,500. Well, if that works for you, you could say, yes, thank you. That works. Or if you usually charge more, you could say, well, I would have to discount my rate. But again, to Shira's point, if it's lead generating, if there's social impact and you want to do it, if it's the right audience, you could say, sure, I'll do that at a discounted rate in exchange for a testimonial, if you're pleased with it, right? So you then get something also, and maybe 2 to 3 referrals, right? You can ask for referrals instead of money. You can ask for a testimonial, in addition to if you're discounting your rate. But sometimes they will have no budget, to Shira's point. It will be a free event, and then that's up to you to decide. My other tip here is that I would block off, I would limit the number of free talks you do a month. And if you have reached if you've already got a free talk in March, you'll have to tell them, you know what, I already have done my pro bono for March. I can do it for a fee in March, or I can move you to May, so you're negotiating and a part of the conversation. I just wanted to say those couple of things. Shula, back to you, and then we can actually talk about also those cold pitches, which you mentioned.
Yeah. So in my work with the Trauma of Money, which is a Canadian program where we unlearn our money stuff and learn how to relate more in a choiceful place, I learned about having a fee sheet that can include different fees depending on the organization or agency who's asking you. So people with a social impact, and then there's grassroots social impact organizations compared to there are social impact organizations that have big budgets too. Right. So my fee sheet has a range of fees that, because I don't speak free anymore, a range of fees that recognizes that I want the financial barriers and the different financial realities of the organizations asking me to speak. And so to Shira's point, I think it was Shira. Yeah. Shira's point about I forget exactly but it made me, when people have less of a budget or it's meaningful to me, to have already thought out for me what, for my own sustainability, And it was
Exactly.
revealing to me when Chantel from the Trauma of Money was like, no, you have a fee for social impact and you have different ones based on, and that was like so helpful.
Yeah, and so having a fee sheet, and some of us might not have those yet, and that's okay if you don't. We're going to talk about money today as well. Women don't talk enough about fees and money, so we're going to share some of that in a moment. But thank you for that point. You're right. You can have rates for nonprofits. You can have rates for for-profit. That's entirely up to you. It doesn't mean we necessarily have to do it for free, but I just like to keep in mind that if we're doing it for free, we can always ask for testimonial, referrals, and like I say, if it's for lead generation, that's also helpful. Okay, great. Someone else who might want to speak to, what are some barriers? Did we already talk about? No, I think we're still on this conversation. Barriers standing in the way of us maybe even asking for the paid gig as well, which Sheila had responded to. Or is there another barrier that comes up right away? Go ahead, Jade.
Ourselves. It's in our brain. I know my hubby and I talk about this quite often because he said there are so many men who would just get up there and would say, I have value, and they would ask for what they thought they were worth. And he's like, and a lot of people just either they don't recognize the value that they're offering. He's very, don't be taken advantage of. And really it is totally yourself, hugely,
Yeah.
I find, for my own experience.
And our money stories, which we've done some workshops on this before. Someone else mentioned, money trauma, right? Depending on what our money stories are and the value that we place, on our time, all of that. Cheyenne, over to you.
It ties into the same thing. I've seen it with marketing with my clients. The first thing we always have to work on is the clarity and connection to the value of their business and themselves. And that, it's how visible you're comfortable being. It's your expansion past your money trauma. That connection to the value that you hold is what you can then move forward in service of.
I think that's beautiful. And as women, the businesses that you have and the way you're counseling women on these things, it just makes us more powerful as a community and a culture. So thank you so much for that work. Make sure everyone's putting your contact info in there in case somebody wants to reach out. Okay, so let's go back to this idea of approaching organizations for paid speaking. There's two ways this really can happen. Someone approaches you or you approach them. I don't know of any other ways. If you can think of one, put it in the Zoom chat for sure. So we've talked a little bit about someone comes to you and says, Pamela, Brenda, Heather, Erica, Michaela, those I can see right there. We would love to have you speak at our conference. First question you ask is, oh, so interested in this opportunity. Thank you. What's your budget? So that puts you on the paid path conversation. The second option here, of course, is that you have a moonshot goal, maybe, of, I would love to speak to that association. I would love to speak at that conference, because maybe you just attended it and you saw the gap or whatever it is. So how might we go about this? I'm going to give my insight, and then I would love for others maybe to weigh in as well. So Sheila mentioned this icky feeling of going at people and saying, please hire me to speak, basically, which I know she wouldn't do, but it's a weird feeling maybe for us. It's not for other people, frankly. I guess they do it a lot. So my thought is, so that would be a cold call kind of scenario or cold email. And my initial thought is, don't make it cold. How can we warm it up? Who do we know, whether it's in that association or who is connected with that association? And my biggest tool when that happens is LinkedIn. I saw someone else mention LinkedIn a few moments ago. I would type in the name of that association and see who I'm linked in to or with. And I might go, oh, I didn't know that Chantel was a part of that association. Maybe she can, I can use her as, and not use her, but, collaborate with her, partner with her to have her introduce me to someone who's on their event management group or whatever. So I would say that would be my initial tip, and then I'll throw it out to everyone. But, don't do a cold pitch. If you can, try to do a warm pitch by having someone introduce you or to be able to use someone else's name to get in the door. That's one thought initially. All right, so who else has an idea for approaching an organization, whether it's an association, a corporation, a nonprofit, what have you? Does anybody have any thoughts or ideas of maybe how you've done it or how you might? And if not, I have some ideas on that as well. Don't worry. self-advertising. So what do you mean by that? Go ahead, Uloma, if you want to further clarify that in the Zoom chat, feel free. Or if you want to come off, just raise your hand. And I think you're going to go ahead and I saw you typing earlier. So I'll let you respond in the Zoom chat if you want while we go to Jade, and I'll come back to you. Go ahead, Jade.
One thing that worked really well for me, because I just got approached about a speaking gig that's going to be like over 3 years time, and they're going to fly me around Canada to do it, which is great and awesome. Yeah, thank you. I actually had just emailed some associations that I'd done work with in the past for webinars and said that I was starting to run my own workshops. And then the response I got from them when I said, hey, here's a workshop that I'm running, and I'm going to be running these other ones. If you want to share it in your newsletter, what have you. A lot of the, what do I want to say, like event planners started to reach out to me and said, hey, by the way, if you're capable of that, I can see. So why don't we book you in for the next 3 years to do X number of workshops over this time frame? And that was really helpful. So I wasn't even being forward about like, hey, hire me. It was more of a roundabout kind of, this is what I'm doing. And then I feel like they almost were worried they were going to miss out on something, right? It's that FOMO, like it gave them FOMO, and then they reached out to me, which then I do find it's a lot easier to continue that conversation afterwards because they've shown me it's something that they do want.
Yes. Someone asked, what is the question we're doing right now? The question is, we're talking about how do we do approach organizations that we might want to talk to? Maybe it's like a cold almost call or a warm call. And I love the fact that Jade has been, in this business, she's doing less than a year and she's already getting those kinds of results. So love that. That takes a lot of chutzpah on your part, Jade. So well done. I don't know how Mindy spelled chutzpah in the ASL. I'm curious about that. Okay, so question is here, how do we approach organizations? Our moonshot goal we might want to speak at. And what I heard from Jade a moment ago is the more you speak, the more you speak. The more you're speaking or teaching, let's use that word in her case, like she's doing workshops. The more you do that, the more people are in your audience, the more they refer you. So it's sort of a snowball effect once you start, I find. Is that if you are speaking on a topic that people are interested in, and it's obviously, you're doing a good job, those inquiries will continue to come. And I'm just checking to see if Uloma had responded there. I don't want to miss so many things in this chat. I'm so sorry if I'm missing. I don't see a response. So what I would also mention is that Jade mentioned event planners a moment ago. Event planners are your gateway. If you're like, I would love to speak at the International Conference of Jewelry Designers coming to Halifax next year. Totally made that up. Who would I approach? Where do I start? So you want to approach either the professional development the event planner. If it's a corporation or an organization, it would be through like HR and professional development, right? Because they are the people responsible for hiring people to do workshops, for instance, at Queen's, right? So Queen's has how many public or professional development workshops in a single day on campus? I mean, all the time. Queen's and other organizations like Queen's are hiring people. So the question is, who do you contact first? And I would suggest that it would be HR and professional development folks at those types of organizations. And if it's a conference, an association, etc., that would be through the event planners. Anyone else wants to mention on that point of, finding the right door to knock on when it comes to these organizations, because that's the person you email in the first place. Sometimes people are very overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start. And on that note, by the way, LinkedIn, right? I'm going to suggest again, LinkedIn. If you don't know who is the event planner, use your LinkedIn, and ideally, if you can, connect with them so that they're abreast of, oh, look at Helen and all the amazing work that she's doing with women over 50. That's incredible. Oh, hey, we've got an opening at a conference. Suddenly she's top of mind because, Helen's active on her LinkedIn and she's linked with people who can hire her, right? So we want to be linking to those people on LinkedIn. That's a suggestion I have there as well. Someone had, by the way, posted earlier, should we join the paid LinkedIn? And I'm just going to say, I have never joined the paid LinkedIn and I have had nothing but great results. So, I mean, some of you, again, maybe want to weigh in the Zoom chat. I have never paid for that service and it works for me great. So that's up to you. Like I have over 4,000 connections on LinkedIn. So for me, LinkedIn works for me because I've connected to people and I post there often, right? So if you're not going to post, then LinkedIn isn't going to be effective for you, whether or not you pay or not, right? It's like how you use the tool. Yeah, Jade's saying it's depends how fast you want to grow. Sure, that's true. That's valid.
And if I could just jump in, Carrie, posting
Yeah.
and we don't need to post on LinkedIn if we are active commenting on other people's stuff. Like if you're not a social media person and or you don't want to do that kind of thing, it's like a networking event. Talking to people is what will get you where you want to go, more so I find than posting.
Yeah, and to your point, you could pay $3,000 to go to a networking event, and if you sit in the corner, you're not getting the $3,000 benefit from that fee at that event, right? So we can pay or we cannot pay. It's up to us how we use. Today, ladies and folks, is an opportunity to network. This is a free opportunity. There's like been over 50 people on this call so far. So this is a chance. Like we have to start looking at every opportunity as a chance to build our network and grow. So yeah, I'm not a big believer that we have to pay to grow our network. That's just me. Someone mentioned if you're in HR, it's valuable. 100%. Yes. If you're in HR and you want to hire people, sure. Okay. Time is of the essence. So we're going to keep going. So we have some thoughts there about how we can break into some of these groups. Maybe somebody wants to chime in on the next question is as to who hires people to pay, to speak for fee, I call it, or to be paid speakers. Let's give people an example or some ideas. We've already thrown some ideas out there. Happy to hear from some folks that we haven't heard from before. Don't be shy. The extroverts have spoken. So let's give them a moment of pause. And I love you as an introvert. There's the introverts are like processing so quickly all of this. Not that they need the time, but they need to reflect. Is there someone who perhaps hasn't chimed in yet that wants to mention who are some groups that perhaps hire people? You don't have to specifically name the company, but types of groups even. Amanda says, I'm trying to keep up with the chat. I'm like, I have given up with the chat, but everyone who would like to get the chat text after, I will supply that. Just contact me. All right. Types of organizations that hire paid speakers. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Oh, I was made aware that the government, like for my industry, for example, they do retirement workshops for employees. So they procure external speakers to come in for that. I'm sure there's a myriad of other. Shira probably knows. She's the one who clued me in. She's probably a good one for hints on that aspect.
So when you say government, let's break that down. Don't forget this, like if we're in Kingston, the city of Kingston, for instance, is a government, it's municipality. So have you approached your municipality? Is the topic a fit? That would be helpful. You'd be amazed at what municipalities will pay people to speak about because they're always training their staff, whether it's on everything from inclusion to, I don't know, also even fun topics, team building things, right? So government, so whether it's municipal, provincial, federal. Let's keep all three levels of government in mind there. Thanks, Carol-Ann. Tammy, over to you.
Kind of following up the government, it's just because the government is so big and each department does not know what the other department's doing. So, if the library has reached out to you or the local economic and development portion of the community of the region, like I get a lot of leads through the region and their seniors helping program or early moms program. So it's all the programs within the municipalities and regions as well.
Love that. Yes. Okay, government. I'll also throw out universities, right? Universities. Now I did work at a college for 15 years and I never paid a guest speaker, but I was in a classroom, but colleges will pay for, certain professional development, certain special days, usually not to speak in front of a classroom of students though. So don't expect that. You might get a nice gift bag. if you're lucky. But universities and colleges, I'm talking more about training staff and such. They definitely have professional development budgets there. Amelia, over to you.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Alumni groups also do a lot of paid speakers, and it's important to note, like with the alumni groups, that like there's a bunch of different alumni groups in different cities, and so if one alumni group pays you to be a speaker there, that doesn't like stop you from being a speaker at the alumni groups in other cities as well. Plus every university has them.
Yes, and college. Yes, you're absolutely right. Let me touch on that topic as it relates to associations also. So associations, if you're not familiar with the association for your industry, you might have even attended the conference, right? Or if you're not aware what professional associations there are, find out what they are for your industry, because they're hiring people at least once a year at their annual conference. Now we're back to in person, right? Or on a regular basis for virtual type training. And to Amelia's point, there are many chapters of an association. So there might be an Ontario chapter, a BC chapter, you get the idea, or even city chapters. And just because and it's a beautiful gateway in, if you have spoken, let's say at the Alberta Healthcare Convention, and then you can say to Ontario, hey, a couple of months ago, I spoke at the Alberta convention. Well, then you have immediate credibility because they hired you. And this is a different audience. This is the Ontario folks, right? So look at the chapters. Amelia was speaking about alumni chapters, but what chapters might there be in your organization also? So I'll just say that, like, it goes back to that, the more you speak, because you just build that wheel. It's a bit of a flywheel, if you will. Okay, I apologize. I cannot see as quickly as you folks are posting, but I know it's good stuff. Other organizations that perhaps somebody might want to mention, and then I'm going to, because we're almost out of time, get to the new program that we have for you. If you're interested in joining through, we can, totally free, you know how we work, but we want to keep this conversation going, and there's an opportunity to do that if you have another extra 5 minutes or so. Tammy, go ahead.
Someone put it in the notes earlier about like the Rotary, the Lions, things like historical societies, garden societies, some of those private societies and women's groups are huge and do have a large reserve to spend on speakers.
Excellent. Yeah. And often looking for very hyper local speakers, right? So if you want to, you know, eventually end up speaking nationally, and I encourage you to do so. We've heard people on the call already do that. Start local, right? If your moonshot is the national convention, start with the local chapter, or at a Rotary Club, Kiwanis, Lions, you know, all of these different, many different ones, which traditionally, let's be honest, have hired men. Now it's our turn to step up to the microphone. And I think there is, you know, there's a cultural shift, but also if we look at Rotary, for instance, the number of women that are in Rotary is more women than ever before. So that audience has changed. There's more demand for you folks to step up and speak. So let's say you were shut down 10 years ago. I don't want that to stop you from going at it again and giving it a try. Okay, so we've sort of started talking today about a very exciting, I think, and deep topic, many different topics here. What are the barriers? What are the opportunities? What are some ways that I can maybe create a better message? I don't even know what I want to talk about or who I want to talk to about. We're kind of scratching the surface today, and I realize that. And that's why I did want to let you know that we do have a new women's speaking circle that we're launching today. So I'm going to put one more time, and I'll probably add it one more time again. We have an application if you're interested in becoming a part of our weekend women's speaking circle. And so this is going to be a monthly meetup. It's going to be, I know the time sometimes throws people off, and I apologize for that, but it's Tuesdays, and it's going to be during the daytime. I think it might be, I don't want to say, I forget. It says in that link I gave you. I should have looked it up. I will look it up here shortly. And it's a chance for us to come together in this type of forum and talk about one topic. Okay, so today we're talking about many, and some people like, my brain is everywhere. But the fact is, we can go very deep on a topic, you know, 1 month, and then move to another topic the next. Thank you, Cheyenne. It's the first Tuesday of every month at 1 p.m. starting on November 7th. I put the link in there, but I didn't have the other copied. So I know that timing doesn't work for everyone, but for those of you that maybe it would work, you don't have to come to absolutely every single one. So let's say November's you can't make it, but December you can, right? So it's going to be a once a month meetup for women such as yourselves. And here's the thing, I do apologize, you know, because I'm a woman and I'm a Canadian, but anyways, because if you're outside our region, we are only able to offer this to eligible clients. Eligible clients are women identifying entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs who are operating their business within the greater Kingston region, which includes Tyendinaga, includes Prince Edward County, the Quinte area. So, you know, if you're not sure, let me know. But that general area, we do give priority to a number of groups. However, you know, certainly all women identifying entrepreneurs within that region are welcome to be a part of it. Shira says, this is for people new to public speaking or for seasoned speakers? I think that's a great question. I think well, we saw the poll that I posted earlier was, I think 87% of people are just starting. So I need to focus on that group. However, when women like yourself, Shira, and others that we know in our community are also a part of those discussions, it just adds a different level of value for sure. We want to make sure though that everyone gets something out of it. So I mean that I would say that it will be aimed at women who are kind of getting started on that. Having said that, you know, there's always value sometimes in making connections and learning something new. But yes, it will be focused on women starting out who are interested in paid speaking. Let me just see, and I do want to dedicate this time now to people who might have questions about what I'm talking about right now. Yeah, are there any questions about this women's speaking circle, where we're going to once a month get you guys the tools and put you in front of the audiences where you can get paid, and then hopefully inspire other women to do the same. I'm hoping it will just grow over time because we need more women at the microphone, on podcasts, launching their own podcast, creating their own events, and inviting other women and men, of course, to take part. So yeah, if you're in Saskatchewan, that is beyond our limits. However, you might want to check with your local university and see if they have a women's speaking circle. Many will have the TEDx talks. And I would definitely consider that type of an arrangement as well. Okay, I'm just looking for questions. Is anyone using the services of a professional speaking agent? That's a good question. I'll just let the group respond to that. If you want to join, no, there's a deadline on this, Wendy, of I believe, and Cheyenne will tell me because she's awesome. Is it October 20th? I believe it is. I believe it's next Friday at noon. Thanks, Jade, for the vigorous head nod. Yes, there's a deadline on this. And I think it's because we want to kind of do a cohort, and then we'll likely open it up at another time. So it's just to manage our resources. So it's going to be difficult if new people are being added all the time. But the good news is it's going to go on and on and on. We do have some very good indication weekend will not be ending in May, just to let you know. So the fact is that this will continue, right? Are these meetups virtual or in person? Excellent question, Joanne. Thanks for asking it. They will be virtual, with the intention, however, to have a speaking engagement event where we showcase women speakers. That's where I'm going with this. And it would be likely in the spring where we bring people to Seaway Co-working and invite some of the women who have been participating in the speaking circle to do like a 10-minute TED style talk almost, where we hear from different voices. That's sort of the idea of where we want to end up with that. Just to make sure that we're not just talking theoretically, but we're also giving people a chance to practice. I believe we can do that partly in the virtual scenarios as well. Sorry, let's try to see if there are any other questions here. General question. Is there a speakers bureau or union that can help with setting rates? Yes, and I realize we didn't get to rates today, but I do want to I'm just going to touch on that because I was doing some research prior to this call in case someone asked about rates. And so I did find a general guideline, which is that if you are sort of starting out as a paid speaker, it's like a pay rate of $500 to $1,500 is not unusual. So I'm not talking $45. Okay, so make sure we have to up level here. So 500 to 1500 would be starting rate for, you know, very early on. Remember, you're not new to your industry. You've been doing your business for a while. It's like you're not, you know, it's not your first rodeo in that way. So give yourself some credit. The second, if you're established keynote, that would be between 1500 and 5000. Okay, so you're established. I would say established means you've done maybe 10 gigs, right? 10 gigs, you're ready to up level. So I would say 1500 to 5000. Advanced, I would say would be 5,000 to 25,000. All right. And celebrity keynote, 25,000 to 100,000 easily, right? And so when you're talking about agent fees, etc., I don't think that it's necessarily viable to have an agent until maybe you're at that expert level, for sure. These are the types of things we'll definitely be sharing more and going into in that women's business circle. But if anybody needs me to email that to them, let me know. And that's not my coming up with that. That's sort of an industry standard. All right, so I forget what the question was. Was there a place where you could set rates? Yeah, there definitely are. There's speaker bureaus in Canada, as many of you know. I do have some friends who are a part of those speakers bureaus. And so from time to time in this circle, I'm going to bring in some guests also to give us, and you might have some guests to suggest so we can get some insights and have our questions answered. The topics of the women's circle will be dependent on what you want to talk about for the next month, right? So we'll set it together. And that's the intention of it. All right. So it's something new that we're trying. We haven't, when you say 10 gigs or more, what does that entail? You've been paid to speak 10 times or more. That's what I mean by that. Would interpreters be available for the women's circle? Absolutely, Leah. That's the way we roll. Yes, we want to make it as inclusive as possible, of course. Yes, and accessible. Okay. Folks, we are at 10:57. Is there a final burning question? Because I know you all have lives to lead and businesses to run. And okay, I'll read all of these Zoom chats later. Sorry, there's direct messages too. Any burning questions, perhaps? A thought, a response to this women's business circle? I don't know. Is there a forum where we can all connect? Yes, there is actually not a forum so much as we have a WeCan community. It's our Facebook community. And so I'm going to just, I'm calling out Cheyenne. Do you mind going and grabbing that link? Thanks for that. I'm going to depend on Cheyenne for that. And she'll put the link if you want to join the WeCan community. You don't have to live in Kingston to do that necessarily. So if that's helpful, we'll put that link in there and you guys can connect in that way. You can just say, hey, I was at this event today. Anybody who is there, I'd love to connect with you. Just post. And once it's approved, people will see it. So check that out for sure. Okay. Any final questions on
No
this
questions. No questions, but just thanks so much. This was it was amazing. And for somebody who's been trying to get into it for a while and didn't really know where to start and didn't have the opportunity to connect with some of these women, I'm really looking forward to doing some more connecting and starting my journey in public speaking or even the podcast things. Can't wait.
Yeah, I love it. And podcasting is a form of speaking for sure. I love it. Yeah. Sometimes, yeah, we didn't see something like this happening. And there are a lot of our clients who have been asking for this. It's a new revenue stream, right? It doesn't mean you have to give up your business, but it introduces a new revenue stream. We've talked before about diversifying your revenue, not just relying on one source of income. So now I hope that we can start to do that. And like I said, the more you get, the more you speak and the more you get paid, the more the flywheel continues. And we want you not just to stay at that entrance level too. The challenge will be great. Let's keep going. Let's go higher. Let's discuss how we can help you to do that. Jade, final word goes to you.
I had a question. I'm going to throw it back at you, Carrie.
Go ahead.
I was wondering, so rates are always a big topic and a big thing, of course, but do you find that typically it's when you start booking up and then your time limitation starts to get encroached upon, that's when you typically will like level up those fees or those prices? I really liked someone was talking about how you don't have to charge the same rate for each company you work with. I think that's fantastic for trying to grow quickly as well. But I was wondering, do you find that that usually goes hand in hand more so even than the speaking 10 times?
Yeah, and just to loop back, I think you should have a pay rate scale though, so that people aren't taking advantage. That is one thing. You need to know your hourly value and the value of your keynote. Okay, so I do like to have people have that set. But sorry, loop back. What was the question earlier? Remind me.
Do you find typically that your rate will increase
yes.
with
When do you
time as
increase?
you have less time?
Yeah, and I would think that that's true. As once you book up, whether that's in your business and you have booked full with clients, that's when you raise it, right? Or of course, inflation perhaps. But yeah, once you're fully booked and you can't fit anymore, you don't have to continue on at that same rate. That's when the indication is, to me at least, this is one girl's opinion, that's the indication to raise your rates, 100%. Yeah. Good, great question. Okay, we're going to go deeper, and I hope that some of you have already signed up for the Women's Business Circle. We will be letting everyone know the week of October 23rd, whether or not it's a go. And so, well, I mean, the circle will definitely be a go. And so we hope that one way or another that you can be a part of it. If you didn't get the link, if you're having trouble with anything today, reach out to me. You have my email because I sent you to the link to this event today. If you'd like to be on our weekly email list, that's where we have a lot of our opportunities as well. Just email me and say, Carrie, add me to that list so I know what these types of opportunities are so I don't miss them. The second thing is definitely to apply before the 20th if you're interested. And yeah, just be a part of that Facebook community group as well, because there's a lot of conversations that happen in there on many, many topics that affect women entrepreneurs. All right, I could go on all day. We're at our time, folks. So I'm going to wave goodbye. Thank you to Mindy for assisting with ASL today. Have a great day, everyone. You're awesome. Take care.